All right, so today we are going deep on Llama 2. And we've got excerpts straight from the source, Meta's research paper, llama2.pdf.
Yeah, there's been so much talk about these large language models. I think this paper really pulls back the curtain and lets you see how they work.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone's heard about AI chatbots, maybe even tried a few out. But how many people really understand how they work? I mean, like, what makes them safe and reliable? Well, that's what we are going to try to figure out today.
And a good place to start, I guess, would be with understanding that Llama 2 isn't just one model. It's actually, a whole family of models, each with a different number of parameters.
Right, so you're talking about the 7 billion, the 13 million, all the way up to 70 billion parameter.
Right. And those parameters are kind of the key. They're really the key to the model's ability to learn and process information. You can almost think of them like connections in a vast neural network, constantly adapting and changing as the model is trained.
So is it like if you have a bigger brain, you're smarter? Like, does the 70 billion parameter model just like blow all the smaller ones out of the water?
It's not quite that simple. I mean, more parameters generally mean more complexity, more learning capacity. But there are trade-offs. In fact, the research paper highlights some interesting findings about how the size of the model, how it's related to things like, truthfulness and even toxicity. But we'll get to that later.
Ooh, interesting. Okay, so we've got these different sizes of Llama 2, and then there's also something called Llama 2 Chat. So what's that all about?
Yeah, so Llama 2 Chat is specifically designed for dialogue. That's why it's the model behind, all those chatbot experiences you've probably seen, the ones that are popping up everywhere.
So it's like they took the basic Llama 2 model and basically gave it a crash course in conversation.
Exactly. It's all about fine-tuning the model for a specific purpose. And in this case, it's about making smooth, engaging back-and-forth dialogue.
That makes sense. So we've talked about the brains of the model. But what about the kind of the food? That's where the data comes in, right?
Absolutely. Data is the fuel that powers these models. And Llama 2 was trained on just a massive data set of publicly available text. We're talking trillions of tokens. That's more text than you could read in a lifetime, probably many lifetimes.
Wow, that's just mind-boggling. It also kind of makes you wonder, with so much data out there, how do they decide what to feed the model?
That's a great question. And Meta was very deliberate in how they approached this. They filtered out data from sites with a lot of personal information, and they actually upsampled sources that they considered factual. Try and ground the model in reality.
So they're trying to make sure that the model is learning from, from reliable sources and it doesn't start like spitting out misinformation.
Exactly. They're trying to reduce the risk of what are called hallucinations. That's where the AI just starts making stuff up.
But here's something that I thought was really interesting. They didn't remove all of the negative content or, the toxic content from the data. Why not? Wouldn't that make the model safer?
Well, yeah, you might think so. But think about it this way. If you only expose the model to like perfectly polite and positive language, well, it's going to have a hard time understanding the nuances of human communication.
Yeah.
Things like sarcasm, irony, and even, harmful language.
So it's kind of like if you want to teach someone about danger, you can't just show them pictures of fluffy bunnies.
Right? Exposure to a range of language, even the negative stuff, allows the model to better understand and navigate the real world.
Okay, so the data is like the raw ingredients. Now we need to talk about how they actually cook it into a functioning model, and that's where the training techniques come in, right?
Exactly. And that training process is really where the magic happens. It starts with what's called pre-training, where the model learns kind of basic language patterns.
So it's like learning the alphabet and grammar before you can start writing novels.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. And Llama 2 builds upon the techniques used in its predecessor, Llama 1, but with some key improvements. And one of the big ones is something called context length.
Context length, what's that?
So basically it refers to how much of the previous conversation or text that the model can kind of remember. So they doubled the context length for Llama 2. Which means it can process these longer, more complex inputs, and it can maintain, coherence over these extended interactions.
So it's less likely to forget what you were talking about 5 minutes ago.
Exactly. It can hold, more information in its working memory, so to speak.
Yeah.
Which is crucial for things like understanding intricate arguments.
Yeah.
Or having, meaningful conversations.
That's a huge improvement. So what other tricks did they have up their sleeve when it came to training?
Well, they also implemented something called grouped query attention, or GQA. And this makes the larger models much more efficient. You can kind of think of it as like a speed reading technique for AI.
So it can process information faster, but without sacrificing accuracy.
That's right. And what's really fascinating is what happens after this initial pre-training. You see, that's where the real customization happens. They use a combination of supervised fine-tuning and something called reinforcement learning with human feedback. And that's where things get really interesting.
All right, well, you've definitely piqued my curiosity. So let's dive into those fine-tuning techniques right after this.
We were just about to get into how Llama 2 is, fine-tuned to become such a powerful tool.
Yeah, this whole reinforcement learning with human feedback thing, that sounds really interesting.
It is. It's kind of like, if you take a talented musician and you pair them with a world-class conductor, someone who can provide expert guidance and feedback, really, help them reach their full potential.
So they're basically training the model, like using input from actual humans.
Exactly. It creates this incredible feedback loop where human judgments and preferences, they directly shape the model's development. It's like having this team of experts. They're constantly evaluating the model's, responses, rating them, providing suggestions for improvement.
Wow, that sounds like a lot of work. But I guess that's what it takes to create a model that can really understand and respond to, to human language in this nuanced way.
Absolutely. And the research paper actually highlights how this approach, using reinforcement learning with human feedback, it leads to significantly better results compared to just relying on supervised learning alone.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. It's like the difference between learning from a textbook and learning from a master craftsman, someone who can show you the ropes and really guide you along the way.
That's a great analogy. And attention to detail, this meticulous attention to detail, it extends to the whole development process, especially when it comes to, to safety and responsibility.
Yeah, and that's something that's been on my mind a lot, with all this talk about AI. It's easy to get caught up in the potential risks. But it sounds like Meta went to great lengths to make sure that Llama 2 is used ethically and responsibly.
They did. I mean, they assembled this massive red team, over 350 experts from all sorts of different fields.
Yeah.
And each one was tasked with trying to break the model.
So they had this team of ethical hackers just poking and prodding at the model, trying to find, any vulnerabilities.
Precisely. They threw everything they could at it, from trying to elicit harmful content to testing its resilience against these jailbreaking attempts, trying to get it to behave in ways that it wasn't intended to.
That's kind of wild. It sounds like something straight out of, a sci-fi movie. But it also makes me feel, I don't know, more confident, knowing that they're taking these risks seriously.
Absolutely. And the insights that they gained from this red team exercise were really invaluable in helping them, refine and strengthen Llama 2's safety measures.
Okay, so we've talked about the model's training and the data it's fed and these expensive safety protocols. But what does all of this actually mean? I mean, what does this mean for the average person? How does Llama 2 impact our lives?
Well, that's the really exciting part. Llama 2 has the potential to revolutionize, so many aspects of our world, from things like, education and healthcare to entertainment and communication.
And one of the most significant things about Llama 2 is that it's open source, right?
That's right, which means, it means anyone can use it, adapt it, build on it. It's like giving the world access to this powerful set of building blocks for AI innovation.
Yeah, I can already imagine the incredible things that people are going to create with this technology. But, open sourcing something this powerful, that also comes with, I think, a huge responsibility, right?
It does. We need to make sure that it's used, for good and not for harm. And that's something that, the Meta acknowledges. And they're actively working to address this through, responsible release strategies and ongoing monitoring. They've even provided these clear guidelines for developers and researchers to use Llama 2 ethically and safely.
So it sounds like they're really trying to strike this balance between like fostering innovation and ensuring responsible use.
Exactly. It's a delicate dance, but it's one we need to get right.
Okay, so we've got this powerful tool that could potentially, change the world as we know it. But I think what our listeners really want to know is like how it could impact their daily lives.
You're absolutely right. And there are so many possibilities to explore. We could talk about how Llama 2 could, personalize education or revolutionize creative tools or even change the way we work.
Yeah, those are all really fascinating topics. I think we need to dive into those a little bit more. Okay, so we're back, ready to really explore how Llama 2 could change things like in our everyday lives. So where do we start?
Well, let's talk about education. Imagine having access to this AI tutor that's available 24/7, can adapt to your learning style, give you instant feedback.
That would be,
Yeah.
that would be incredible, especially for people who maybe struggle in a traditional classroom or are just trying to learn something new on their own.
Right, exactly. Llama 2 could be the engine behind this whole new wave of, personalized learning tools, like interactive textbooks that, that adjust the difficulty level based on your understanding. Or language learning apps that can have natural conversations with you in the language you're trying to learn.
Yeah, it's like having a personal tutor who knows exactly what you need to succeed.
And it goes way beyond, way beyond just traditional education. Think about workplace training programs that can be customized for each employee's role and skill level.
That would be, that would be so efficient. Could really help people, advance in their careers.
Absolutely. Let's shift gears a little bit. Let's talk about creativity. We're already seeing all these AI tools that can help with writing, but Llama 2 could really take things to a whole new level.
Yeah, I've heard about those AI writing assistants, the ones that can help you overcome writer's block or even like generate different writing styles.
It's amazing stuff. Imagine collaborating with an AI on a screenplay or getting help crafting the perfect email. It's not about replacing human creativity. It's more about, augmenting it, unlocking these new possibilities.
Yeah, it's like having a brainstorming partner that can just generate ideas on demand and help you, refine your work.
Exactly. And it's not limited to writing either. Think about music composition, graphic design, even video editing. Llama 2 could provide these tools that empower anyone to express their creativity, regardless of their technical skills.
Yeah, that's really exciting. It could really democratize access to these creative tools. It could lead to this explosion of, new art and innovation.
No. I think we can't talk about the future without talking about work. There's a lot of anxiety around AI taking jobs. It's important to acknowledge those concerns.
Yeah, it's definitely on everyone's mind. But, I think it's also important to remember that AI can create jobs and augment existing ones, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Instead of fearing automation, I think we should really focus on how we can leverage AI to enhance human capabilities and create these new opportunities. Think about all those tasks that are, that are repetitive or time-consuming. AI could handle those.
Yeah.
And free up humans to focus on, the more creative, strategic work or even the interpersonal stuff.
So instead of replacing jobs, it's more about helping us work more efficiently,
more effectively.
Yeah,
it's collaboration, not replacement, and this could lead to the creation of whole new job categories, things that we haven't even imagined yet.
So it's all about adapting. It's about evolving, which kind of brings us to, I think, a really important question for our listeners. Like, what can they do to prepare for this AI powered future?
That's a great question. I think the most important thing is to stay curious and keep learning. There's so many resources available, online, articles, courses, even podcasts like this one that can help you really, understand the basics of AI and its potential impact.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to experiment. There are so many AI tools out there, from chatbots to writing assistants. Just try them out, see what they can do.
Absolutely. The more you play around with these tools, the more comfortable you'll become. And the better you'll understand how they can be used in your life.
Yeah, it's all about embracing the possibilities and being proactive in shaping this new technological landscape.
And remember, the future isn't, it isn't predetermined. It's something we create together.
Yeah.
So stay engaged, ask questions, and participate in these conversations about how we want to develop and deploy AI in a way that benefits everyone.
That's such a crucial point. We all have a role to play in, in shaping this future.
Absolutely. Well, that about wraps up our deep dive into Llama 2.
Yeah, it's been a fascinating journey. And honestly, I feel like we've only just, scratched the surface.
There's always more to learn, more to explore. I think that's what makes this field so exciting.
Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Llama 2. Until next time.